Okay, hi everybody. Today we want to talk about what's your process? What's your photographic process? What's your thought process? What do you do before you get ready to make an image? Remember, in this class we're talking about making photographs, not taking snapshots. A big difference. So our photographic process has to be something that's easy to remember, that's easy to follow and duplicate, and have it become routine for you. Something that you will do just about every time you get ready to take an image, or every time you get ready to go out and photograph, or every time you have a photographic session, right? What are you thinking? For me, I like to look at composing first, right? Right? What's my composition going to look like? Where do I want the camera? What lens do I want to use? What's going to look best in this situation? Vertical, horizontal, get down low, find something to stand up on and get up really high. What's the best angle for this subject, at least to start with? And that's the problem, is that, be creative, right? It's a process, and if you give yourself a process to go through, your hit rate or your chance of good images that you like and that you enjoy will probably go up rather significantly, rather than just kind of, spraying and praying and hoping you get something good, right? So think about, I like to compose first and look at what the situation has and what can I do and where do I want to be and things of that nature, okay? The second thing I like to look at is the light, right? It's, the time of day, the clouds, and or if I'm in the studio, okay? Right? What time of day is it? What's going to look good here? Do I want to be there really early or late? Can I shoot this in the midday? If it's overcast and I've got a nice soft light coming down, then yeah, maybe a nice overcast day, even in the middle of the day, can work quite nicely. So you got to try and look at what is the light doing. And if you're in the studio, where do you want to place your lights? Right? At least start thinking about it ahead of time, okay? And then the last thing for me is to shoot. Now, I know that sounds funny. Of course, you push the button to shoot. But for me, this is all about exposure and depth of field, right? And ISO, right? Where do I want to be with all of these things, right? Where do I really want this exposure to be, right? How much depth of field do I really need for this particular shot, or how much do I want, or how much can I get away with, right? And where can my ISO be? I'd like it as low as possible, right? So where can it be in order to get this shot done? Now, a lot of these things I will set up or guess at or set my camera up when I'm at home before I even leave. Even though I'm indoors sitting on a chair in the living room, I will still try to guess at what the situation is going to be if we're going to drive to the park, or we're going on a little vacation, or whatever the situation is. I will try to set up right before I go out and shoot as to what I think the situation is going to call for. At least I'll have some of my numbers set and ready to go, that if I need to take a photo quickly, I could. The other thing is it gets you in the mindset, right? This is what this whole photographic process is about. It's about getting your mind moving in the right direction, that you're now going to make images, right? So setting up ahead of time, kind of like a golfer might have a pre-shot routine where they go through the same thought process every time before they actually strike the ball. Or you might see like a high jumper, and they'll start to prepare themselves mentally for going over the bar, right? They're thinking about it ahead of time. They're setting themselves up for success mentally before they ever go about the event or the process or the actual physical movement that they're going to do. So this is no different, right? You want to set yourself up by thinking about what you're going to be doing before you actually do it. And this gets your mind going in the right direction. And that's the whole point of this. So what's your photographic process? This will be on the final exam. And you can certainly use mine if you like. But you need to have something that's going to work for you. Right? Something that's repeatable, that's easy, that you'll remember, and that you can do just about every time you get ready to take an image. Right? What are you doing? Are you looking for composition? Are you looking at the light? Do you have your numbers and your camera settings ready to go? Right? So this is part of the process that I used for many, many, many years, and it served me well to give me a thought or a direction to go in before I ever put the camera up to my face and take a picture. All right? Part 2 coming up here. For kind of part 2 of this about your photographic process, let's start looking at, you have a frame, right? So here is your frame. And we want to start looking at, well, what do we do with the frame, right? So a little bit, we're going to start a little bit about composition. And where do we put things, and what do we do with our frame? Well, one of the easiest things that I found is that I like to start in the upper left-hand corner of the frame. And typically, I will make my eye move around the perimeter of the frame first. Now, I do that times 3. Typically will go around the edge of the frame 3 times very quickly, looking for things that I don't like. So looking for things that I call intrusions, or distractions, right? Especially if they're on the perimeter. We don't want things sticking into the frame that will cause our eye to be directed away from our primary subject. So I like to go around the perimeter 3 times, and I simply call this secure the perimeter. Okay? So look for things that are going to take your eye away from your primary subject, right? There's only 2 things. Things that will compete with your primary subject and things that complement your primary subject. So we want to get rid of things that are distractions or intrusions or things that are competing with our primary subject, right? Stick growing out of someone's head in the background, right? Fire hydrant, telephone pole, wires, antennas, whatever, right? We want to make sure that those things are not in our frame or sticking in such a weird place or angle or something into the frame, which is going to cause the viewer to look at that other element or that distraction or intrusion, okay, or something that competes with our primary subject. We only want to have elements in the frame that complement our primary subject in how we're trying to set up the movement or the flow or the direction that the image will be absorbed, right? Typically, we're very good at left to right, top to bottom, because it's how we read in this country. So typically, we want to think about our primary subject taking advantage of that movement, left to right, top to bottom. That gives the viewer an easy path to absorb our image, right? And that's what we want to do. We don't want anything to compete. We only want elements in our frame that will complement our primary subject. And if we do have things like this that are on the edges of the frame especially, and especially if they're bright, we want to get rid of them. Now, we can get rid of them a number of ways. We can photograph the scene differently, right? We can use a different lens, we can move, we can change our composition, we can do a bunch of things, right? Or we can eliminate some of them in post-production, right? It's very easy to get rid of some of these distractions using Photoshop or other photographic editing tools, right? So we can think about leaving this element in the frame knowing that we're going to be able to either crop it out, make the image a little bit smaller, crop it out, or use a editing tool and simply get rid of it so that it's now no longer an intrusion or a distraction into our frame. So a couple things to think about securing the perimeter, right? Making sure we're getting rid of distractions. Start in the upper left-hand corner and move around the frame, however you choose. I always went this way, counterclockwise. Don't ask me why. It always seemed like a natural thing to do. Start here, go down. So it was a natural thing for me to do. Not something you have to do, but think about what are you going to do before you take the image. Don't take the image and then look at the back of the camera on the LCD screen and figure out, did I do that right? Do it ahead of time. Don't trust the screen to give you all the information you need, because it won't happen, right? Trust your eye and trust your ability to compose the scene correctly so that it has a more nice or a more natural look to it, so that you have direction and movement, either left to right, top to bottom, bottom to top, right to left, but it's just you have some movement and some direction and some flow in your image. Okay, so a little bit about composition and a little bit about securing the perimeter. Okay, very good.